Hi, I'm Damilola Oluwatoyinbo, the King Raiser, and today I want to speak to you about something very dear to my heart, something that I'm so passionate about, and it's about growth. You know, there are 4 dimensions of growth. There are 4 areas in which you can grow. You might be familiar with one of them, the spiritual areas. So there's the area of spiritual growth, but there's also your physical growth. And most people oscillate and vacillate between these 2 areas, spiritual growth and physical growth. So basically you go to a church or religious organization and you draw some kind of revelation, insight, spiritual empowerment on a weekly basis. And then for your physical growth, you're eating your rice or beans, your akamo, caviar, filet mignon, begiri, ewedu, whatever it is that you eat. And you're intentional about those 2 areas. Now, what happens ever so often is that you are strong in the areas that you pay attention to. So there are people who are very religious or spiritual, and there are people who are growing from 6-pack to 1 bag and all kinds of things in their physicality. But there are 2 other areas of growth that most people do not pay enough attention to: mental and emotional. So whilst we're very particular about losing weight physically, when was the last time you lost the baggage dangling around your mind? When was the last time you dealt with the fat of frustration, that you let go of the excess luggage dangling around your emotions? Are you intentional about taking care of your mental health, your mental space, about the resources that you consume? Yes, it's okay for you to say things like, one day, it go better. Leave am for God. You know that mentality, particularly if you grew up in many parts of Africa, that basically relegates our responsibilities to God. But then the question has to be, will you take responsibility for your own growth? Will you take responsibility for the intelligence, the insights, the creativity, the gifts that God has given to you? Or are you going to keep saying, well, if God wants me to have it, then He's going to do it? Have you noticed that some of the most religious countries are also some of the poorest countries? Isn't that interesting? That some of the countries where people pray the most, shout the loudest, and talk about these things that we consider spiritual are also the countries and economies where people are suffering and slaving and people are going through all kinds of crises. Why? Because there are people who are spiritual giants, but they are mental dwarfs. There are people who are spiritually activated, but emotionally deactivated. And that's part of why Global Greatness exists. We are trying to help people to move from the place of what will be, relegating their responsibilities to God and taking responsibility under God to account for their skills, their gifts, their abilities, their insights. One of my passions is to be able to raise people who are not only spiritually activated, but who are mentally astute, who are emotionally stable, who are intelligent, who are financially well-to-do. So are you going to take responsibility today? Let me say this as well. You know how it is, you say, I have a budget for my food. And when your body breaks down, what do? You get a gym, you get a gym instructor, you get a therapist, you get a doctor to take a look at that. When was the last time you got a coach to look at your mind, to investigate your thinking, to run a scan on your soul? Have you done a soul scan recently to be able to identify the lumps of greed or lumps of laziness or the things that are clotting, the clots of crisis that must then go through some kind of prescription? Or are you just winging it, picking a book over there, reading it, watching a movie over there? We want to help you have structure in your learning process. I started investing heavily in my mental and personal growth when I was 17 years old. And that was over 17 years ago. So over those years, I've seen remarkable growth, and I wanted to be a part of that experience. If you feel like I'm the right fit for you, and I can tell you, you're possibly not going to find too many people who have my combination of years in terms of experience, impact, articulation, the ability to diagnose the specific issues you may have been through, because I've played in multiple industries, from the spiritual space to the media space and marketing, leadership. I've done this in the country and outside the country. My voice has been heard in many countries of the world, scores and scores of countries, spoken to millions of people via the technology of television and online media. And I'm not saying this to brag, but I want you to know this. I got you. I know where you are. Hit me up real quick. Follow the instruction on the screen. I'm eager to join hearts and minds with you so that together we can enjoy global greatness. It's time for you to take responsibility for your growth. Act now.